Today will be a day to remember for the rest of your life. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is excited to present the heart of a Hall of Famer program connected by Extreme Networks. With over 100 Hall of Famers participating, we have reached 47 states and countries all over the world, sharing the message that football is more than a game and can teach Americans important life values like commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and honesty.
But you have to make right decisions even when nobody's watching you.
Well, respect is not just given out. It's not handed out like a brochure. It's earned.
Today, you are presented with an opportunity to meet and learn from one of the greatest football players of all time. But more important than that, the chance to see that their Hall of Fame life wasn't given to them. They didn't roll out the bed great. They put the work in, on the field, in the weight room, in the classroom, in their communities. They made themselves a Hall of Famer on and off the field.
Your feet can't take you where your mind's never been.
Because you can make it, but it's just gonna take a little hard work and some effort and the drive and determination.
And today, you will learn you can do the same thing they did. You don't have to have a gold jacket or a bronze bust to make a difference in the lives of others. It's your decision whether you want to be a successful student, son, daughter, brother, or sister.
If attitudes are contagious, is your attitude worth catching?
It's integrity as well, because when you decide to pursue something and you don't quit, that says a lot about you.
Commitment to excellence. We can all aspire to be the best.
Welcome to a once-in-a-lifetime program, the heart of a Hall of Famer program, connected by Extreme Networks.
I'd first like to say how honored and blessed I am to be here. If someone had told me when I was a kid that one day I would play in the NFL and let alone be inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I wouldn't have believed it. I consider it an honor and a privilege to be standing up here today, and I'd like to thank the Lord Jesus Christ for blessing me and my family so much. As much as I'd like to take credit for everything that's happened in my career, I know it was only because of how the Lord blessed me that I was able to accomplish what I did. My part was the easy part. Just go out and use the talents and abilities God gave me. God blessed me with the size, the desire to play the game. He kept me injury-free and brought me many wonderful coaches and players into my life, and for this, I'm very thankful.
All right, with that, I'd like to welcome everybody here to Toloso Midway Middle School, the Jim Cooper Auditorium, for today's Heart of a Hall of Famer program connected by Extreme Networks. My name is Jake Ray. I'm the Youth and Education Manager at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. I'll be moderating this Q&A session today with our special guest, Hall of Famer, Mr. Bruce Matthews, and we'll bring him out here in a second. But before we do, a little bit about us at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Our mission is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence together. And those values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and honesty, all of which made Mr. Matthews a Hall of Famer on the football field, a great person that played the game of football. But more importantly, it made him a great person, a great husband, father. He's got some pretty famous family members that also played in the game, and all of those values they learned to make them great football players as well as great people off the field. And truly, everybody in our audience here today, they can make you great parents, great students, great members of your community. So not only are they important in the game of football, they're important in what we call the Hall of Fame life as well. Before we get started, and before we bring out Mr. Matthews here, I have some thank yous I'd like to pass out. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our great partners at Extreme Networks for providing us this opportunity here today. Without them, this opportunity couldn't happen, and students all over the country wouldn't be able to hear from the great Hall of Famers that we have enshrined in Canton, Ohio. So first and foremost, thank you so much to Extreme Networks. Secondly, I want to thank all the staff here at Toloso Midway, as well as all the teachers who have participated in Heart of a Hall of Famers prior to this one, including this one as well. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to share the great message that the Hall of Fame has and what the message that our Hall of Famers bring to this program as well. So thank you for everything you do for the youth, of this community and communities all around the country, and for allowing us to be just a small part of your students' learning experience. And lastly, students, whether you're tuning in today, whether you're watching this 6 months from now, or whether you're sitting in our audience here today, thank you so much for allowing us to come to your school here in Corpus Christi. And for all the other students who are tuned in today, you know, this program is for you. You have the opportunity, especially all of our students here, to ask a question today to a Hall of Famer. Not very many times you're going to be able to get to do that in your life. So take advantage of it. Sit back, listen, learn to all the great things that our special guest has for us today. If you happen to be watching us on Facebook Live and you're tuned in, watching us on the Hall of Fame's page, and you have a question for Mr. Matthews, go ahead and submit that in the comment section as well. Let us know where you're watching from. If you're a student, let us know what school you go to, and we'll try our best to make it as part of the program. For our students here, as I said before we began, if you have a question, we're going to go out to you. We're going to look for some questions. Go ahead and step up to the microphone that we have in here, and then go ahead and ask your question. So that's enough of me talking. Without further ado, let's welcome our special guest today, Hall of Famer, Mr. Bruce Matthews. Awesome. Well, have a seat, take the mic there. And, you know, I always joke the perks of hosting this program is I always get to ask the first question. So you heard our values there, commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and honesty. Out of those 5, looking back on your football career, is there one that stands out to you that impacted your career more than others? Or are they like a team? Do they all work together to make you the best player you can be?
It's about teamwork. And especially on the offensive line, you got 5 guys who typically the only time we get recognized, if you give up a sack, holding call, get the quarterback hit, something like that. So you got to be able to trust your teammates who are playing next to you. And so I look at all those values, and the biggest thing, and the one room on a football team, and when I say a room, the meeting room where the offensive line is, you know, you have to be able to trust your teammates and know that when you make a call, it isn't just going to go on deaf ears. They're going to hear it, they're going to do it, and you're going to be working 5 guys working as one.
And I mentioned the huddle, mentioned working 5 guys working as one, and not just for the offensive line unit, who's seen as that cohesive, the most cohesive group on a football team. But I like to take a look at the huddle and what it means. 11 different people in the huddle on offense and defense, 11 different backgrounds, 11 last names. They look 11 different people, 11 different religions, beliefs, whatever it might be. Being in that huddle, how special is it? And how does everybody kind of put the bygones aside, right, and come together in that huddle to work for that common goal?
The big thing is you have to truly put aside your selfish ambitions and understand that you get rewarded when the team does well. And typically what happens, unfortunately, what happens in the NFL, I think in all team sports, is that when teams have success, then guys start going, hey, what about me? I want mine, whatever, my more touches, more whatever, more money. And you forget how building up to that point, you set aside the selfish goals and put the team first. And we played, none of you kids out here, we played in the 2000 Super Bowl when I was with the Titans. And it truly was a case of that. That was how we made it to the Super Bowl, because we had gone through 3 horrible years when the Houston Oilers franchise had moved to Tennessee. And I think that's what allowed us to be the type team that finally was able to break through and go to the Super Bowl.
You see all those examples that you learned from the game, those values, what you learned from being in that huddle, being a part of a team like a football team. How did you take those values and then apply them to your life off the field? Or how did the game of football help you become a better man and a better person, you know, either once you were outside the huddle, outside the game, or even after your career was over?
Well, the big thing is, you know, quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, the guys who score touchdowns, they're going to get the majority of the attention. And you got to understand, hey, that's how it works. That doesn't mean I'm not valuable if I'm not one of those guys. That we all have a job to do. We all have the ability to affect people and to
build others up by how we live our lives and how we treat others. And that isn't only true for a football team, but I mean, your family, your business, at school, those values transcend every area that we're talking about.
I'm glad you said it, because I was going to bring up, a lot of things you're talking about can apply to a football team, obviously, but can apply to your family, your church, your school groups, within your school. So there's so many different ways. That's why we like to say we're unapologetically football at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, that we believe that there's so many great things that football can teach. And you obviously have been a part of it for so long and can really speak on how important that is.
I think having had the opportunity to play with such great players, whether it's Warren Moon and Earl Campbell and Robert Brazil and Steve McNair, Eddie George, I could go on and on. And as I think about those guys, yeah, they were great athletes, they were great players, but they were also great people. And not only were they themselves great players, but they lifted their teammates up to make them better. So you can see why it's so important. And just because a guy runs 4.3 and bench presses 225 50 times doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate into a great football player. There's so many things that need to take place, and so many of those values that if they have them, it can overcome a world of deficiency that they might have physically. But unfortunately, a lot of times guys don't have those values, and you see it in the newspaper headlines all the time. They're putting themselves before the team.
Mentioned a lot of great people you play with there, a lot of Hall of Famers that are now on your Hall of Fame team. You talked about lifting each other's up, becoming leaders. How important is it to take on a leadership role? Now, you might not think you have the capabilities to do it, but how do you power through that and start to develop those tendencies to become a leader in your classroom, in your family, or on a sports team?
Right. I wouldn't, if you said I was going to be sitting up here talking in front of people, no way. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. But as I've grown and matured, I've realized that God has blessed me with these gifts, not just to be a great looking guy, obviously, and but to go and take those gifts and affect other people. And I think that's been the greatest learning tool for me, is that we've all been given gifts, and we all have the opportunity in some shape or form to affect and help lift up others and when they're going through hardship.
Awesome. All right. We're going to go to a question here in our audience here in a second. So if you have a question, go ahead and step up to the mic. And as we wait for our students to come up here, next question, you talked about leadership, and, throughout your career, you can either be gung ho and jump into that leadership role right away as a rookie, or kind of see like, hey, you know what? I know I'm a rookie. There's these older vets on my team. So when you get to be in the NFL and you're a rookie, how's that transition happen? You look up to certain people when you get in the league, but then when does that transition flip over to, well, wait, now I'm the mentor for all the rookies coming into the game?
It's funny because my dad played in the NFL with the 49ers back in the 1950s. Then my older brother Clay played for the Browns. He was a first round pick for the Browns. He was 5 years older than me. So basically I had it modeled for me growing up. And I was very respectful of the older guys. I knew you don't get to the NFL by accident. And I basically shut my mouth and tried to work hard. And then all of a sudden, it's amazing how over the years, guys, they keep cutting away on the roster. And then I hit 30 years old, and all of a sudden I was an old guy. And craziest thing, the only time in my life when I was 30, I was old. But then you realize, yeah, you have to take charge. It's up to you and to affect your teammates.
Who was that mentor for you when you got into the league? Did you look up to somebody specific?
Well, when I got drafted by the Oilers in 1983. It was right after Love You Blue. Funny story is people ask me all the time, man, what was it like to play for the Oilers? And I know none of you kids remember the Oilers, but back in the day, in the late 70s, they almost beat Pittsburgh twice. Bum Phillips was the head coach. Crazy fans in Houston. And they had a huge pep rally at the Astrodome talking about how next year they were going to kick the door in. And so I got so tired of correcting people and saying, well, actually, I was in high school then. I didn't play for the Love You Blue Oilers, that now when people ask me, hey, what was it like with Pastorini and Bum Phillips? Oh, man, it was awesome. You know, I went right after my class in high school. So
awesome. All right, we got some questions here. It looks from our students. So go ahead, state your name, what grade you're in, and then go ahead and ask your question.
And what's with that Titan gear?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Titans. So is my dad. He came here and gave me this hat as well.
I got you.
So my name is Kevin Salinas. I'm a senior here at Tulsa Midway High School. And to be honest, I'm really asking for my dad here because he is a big fan of the Titans. He remember when you were with the Oilers as well. So he wanted me to ask you, which thing did you prefer? Did you like when you were the Oilers, or do you like it?
Oh my gosh.
And then there was the Tennessee Oiler kind of in between,
Yes.
the in-between name too.
I have a big old box of Tennessee Oiler gear. So if anybody's looking for a collectible, I'm willing to sell. I played, let's see, 14 years as a Houston Oiler. Then I played 2 years as a Tennessee Oiler and 3 years as a Tennessee Titan. So the Tennessee stuff was great. We had a lot of success, but man, I came into the league and played in the Dome, and I mean, nothing like the Astrodome back in the day. But unfortunately, we never made it over the top and went to the Super Bowl. And first year of the Tennessee Titans, we didn't make it to the Super Bowl. So it was kind of ironic, but there were a lot of Houston fans who were pulling for us, although it was kind of bittersweet. I would have much rather accomplished it playing in Houston.
I like that. I like that relationship, that the Oilers Titans. We had Robert Brazil on this program earlier this year. And we asked the question to him, you know, he played his entire career, retired as a Hall of Famer as an Oiler, but the Oilers aren't around. And how did the Tennessee Titans franchise embrace him as an Oiler? It's kind of the same question for you, but you kind of saw the flip to who we now know as the Tennessee Titans. So what is that like to go through and, you know, be relocated, not because you were traded or cut or signed somewhere else, because the team literally just moved to a new city?
The Tennessee Titans should give all the history to the McNair family and the Texans, and let the Texans do like throwback Oilers. Wouldn't it be cool to see that?
The Powder Blues back
Yeah.
out? Absolutely.
Columbia Blue.
Oh,
Come
sorry,
on.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Columbia Blue. Got a question here that came from our Facebook audience. We played all 5 positions along the offensive line, which you're you know, mostly you go in, you play one position nowadays, and you even long snap. So add that to the repertoire. What was the most challenging for you? Or was it, you know, you were the type of player that, all right, I may be playing left tackle, but I'm going to know what every other guy on the line is doing?
I did have like anxiety about not knowing what other people did. So I tried to learn everything. My dad, he didn't force us into sports. His thing was, if you're going to play, you're not going to quit. You're going to do what the coach tells you, and you're basically going to volunteer for everything so you can get on the field. And long snapping was like that. In 9th grade, I was living back in Chicago, and the coach said, hey, who wants to learn how to long snap? Oh, heck yeah, absolutely. And I was pretty darn good at it. And I covered punts for like 15 years in the league, covered about over 1,000 punts. I think I had 20 tackles total, all in my first 3 years. And then snapped for field goals all but my rookie year. They had a guy who did it, and he did punts and field goals. And it was funny because part of me was like, man, I got to get off covering punts because, big fat butt running down the field after a 9-play drive, I'm pretty gassed. The best part of it was I did have 1 play buffer from going back to the bench and the offensive line coach ripping butt on us if we had a bad series or something.
There's always a positive to
Yes,
every situation.
absolutely.
You've mentioned your dad and your brother both playing in the league. You're known, the Matthews family is well known throughout the illustrious history of the NFL. Your sons, nephews, there's still more Matthews coming.
Right.
That are one day going to be in the league. So we thought, what better way to talk about that family and give a little insight to what we're about at the Pro Football Hall of Fame than giving everybody here, everybody on Facebook, a live look into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So what we're going to do, we're going to send it live to Canton, Ohio, to the Ralph Wilson Jr. Research and Preservation Center with John Kendall, who's the Vice President of Archives, Education, and Football Information. He's going to talk a little bit about what he does, where he's at, and a little about the first family of football, the Matthews. So John, whenever you're ready, take it away.
I appreciate it, Jake. Bruce, first and foremost, just thank you for all you've done for the game. Thank you for all that you continue to do for the game and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We're here in Canton, Ohio right now in the Ralph Wilson Jr. Pro Football Research and Preservation Center, like Jake said. And this is where we house over 40 million pages of documents, 6 million photographic images, and close to 30,000 artifacts related not just to the history of the game, but really every player, coach, and contributor who built the game to what it is today. Like a lot of your family, Bruce. And, a few of the things that I want to showcase just to get a sense to all of our viewers out there of what we collect. We have pretty much every book ever written on pro football history. This is American Football by Walter Camp. It dates back to the 1880s. We've got rule books. We've got over 55,000 game programs in our collection. This is one from 1880, Princeton versus Yale, first ever college football championship game program. We've got this Dutch Sterneman collection, which is probably my favorite collection in our library here. This has documentation of early NFL history. These are documents from 1925 in the Red Grange Tour. We've got jerseys here, like this J.J. Watt jersey from the 2012 season. Scouting reports. This one here is from Jerry Rice, actually, the USFL. Birmingham Stallions. He was the first overall draft pick in the 1985 draft by the in the USFL. And then since 1997, we've received the draft card of every player drafted into the National Football League. So what better way to start their personal archive than with their draft card? We've got correspondences like this one here from 1976 from an administrative assistant back then named Bill Belichick with the Detroit Lions. So a lot of great things in our archive related to the history of the game and those individuals who built it. And, I wanted to showcase a little bit about your family here. Obviously, your bronze bust that we have on display in the Hall of Fame gallery for visitors to see. Brought it down here so everybody could see that here. Large photo collection from both yourself over here on the right. We've got images of your long career. There's one of you at USC. We also have one of your brother, a large photo collection of your brother as well. Played a long time in the league as a linebacker. And then one of my favorite things here, I know Jake mentioned it. This is your father's media guy bio from the 1955 San Francisco 49ers team. There, we've got a team photo of him. I believe this is from the 1950 49ers. There he is, number 46. I know he went on to be number 83 and play defensive end. There's a image there of you and your brother, and then the draft cards. There's one of your son, 6th overall pick. There for the Atlanta Falcons, and then Clay's son, first pick, 26 overall for the Green Bay Packers. So just a few things there. And one of the questions that I had to throw back to you guys there is, the fact that your dad played in the league, he served in the military as well. What's maybe one value that he instilled in you and your brother, really, that you think really helped define your success both on and off the field throughout your life?
I think I actually heard that. One thing my dad instilled.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, like I said, my dad never forced us to play, but he sure as heck, he said, if you ever dicking around on the field, I will personally come and snatch you off the field. So, and my dad also was the heavyweight Golden Gloves boxing champion of Georgia when he was at Georgia Tech. He was a wrestling champion. So needless to say, discipline wasn't an issue at my house. In fact, one time, my best friend in high school and I put the gloves on, and I started, my dad didn't specifically train me in boxing, but his dad, my grandfather, Matty Matthews, used to teach all the neighborhood kids back in Charleston, South Carolina. So I knew, my dad always told me, hey, you can have one punch and you protect yourself, and that's a jab. And so my buddy had the old school braces, and I was peppering him in the mouth, and his lips got all busted up. And my dad happened to drive home from work right there. And he it was like I had violated a trust because I was using this skill that I had. And he put the gloves on. He goes, all right, tough guy. And it was like Rocky versus Clubber Lang. It was like, boom, boom. Like, Dad, I get it. I'll never abuse the privilege again.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you sharing a little bit with us, and look forward to seeing you here in Canton soon.
All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. That's a live look into our archives at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I'll tell you, if you're a normal visitor and you want to go tour the Hall of Fame, you don't get to see that. So a little special looking. Got to see the bronze bust, right. That statue that goes on display there at the hall.
Another tidbit. Gosh, I can't remember who the gentleman was, but anyway, he said, I got a big old jug head, right? They go, we had to reinforce your shelf to hold your bronze bust because it was the heaviest bust in the Hall of Fame. So I got that going for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Saw the picture there, obviously with your brother playing against your brother Clay, and we all know that there's some sort of specialness that goes with that. How many ever times did it happen throughout your career? But truly, what was it like for not only you and him, but the entire family to go to a game in Houston or Cleveland and have a huge celebration of the Matthews family when those games happened?
I think it was something we took for granted. And a little background: I got drafted by the Houston Oilers, and my brother was playing for the Cleveland Browns. Back in the day, the Browns, Oilers, Steelers, and Bengals were all in the same division. So we played them twice a year. And, my brother was my idol. He was everything I aspired to be like. And to go up to Cleveland, the old dog pound, not the new fancy one, but the old one. And they would specifically put the visiting team in front of the dog pound where all the rowdy drunk fans were. And I made it a point to always have my nameplate facing the dog pound. And they, hey, Matthews, when are you gonna come up here and play with your brother? Man, I'd love to. But it was just such a cool thing. And I was a huge fan of the game without playing in it. So it was like I got backstage passes to be up there and seeing how the Cleveland fans love my brother so much. And then, it was really cool. We played 23 times. He beat me for a sack one time. He even said he felt bad about it. I really don't believe him, but yeah.
Very cool. I'm sure it was very cool for the family.
Yes.
Got some other students who are going to go ask some questions. So go ahead and step up, state your name, your grade, and then go ahead and ask your question.
My least favorite, most favorite what?
O-line position.
Oh, loved playing center because I got to make all the calls. I got to touch the ball and felt like I was in control a little bit. Loved playing guard because we would pull a lot and you could go be violent and abuse somebody.
In a totally under the rules, legal, no flags way.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. You realize I've never had a legitimate holding call, you know. All right, but anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And then love tackle because it was a one-on-one matchup and you pretty much were going to face the same guy throughout the whole game. But yeah, I really enjoyed playing all positions, and you know, I was honored that the coach thought moving me to another position was going to help the team. I guess I could have looked at it the other way, that they thought I was crappy at the other position. They need to move me to somewhere where I wouldn't affect as much, but I looked at it the other way.
You know, just hearing that right there, you hear how, you know, you look at the offensive line, all right, they block people. Well, you just heard right there that 3 different positions, 3 different true responsibilities, all really doing the same type of work. So when you look back on your career, were there times where you felt like you had to study more and watch more game film, depending on what position you were at or who you were going up against that week? And how important was that for you throughout your career?
I remember, I think it's mid-May or thereabouts, the official NFL schedule comes out. And inevitably that day, I'd be laying in bed. And I'll never forget one time we were playing the Raiders. And I start thinking about Howie Long. And I'm like, oh, crap. You know, I didn't get to sleep at all that whole night. I was so nervous about the game. But that's the beauty of the NFL, that you can be riding high and having a great streak of games. And there's somebody looming next Sunday that's trying to eat your lunch. And the beauty of it is it doesn't matter if you're from, you know, East, West, Alabama State at Birmingham, they bring something to the table that if you're not on your game, they're going to embarrass you. And I would have extreme anxiety the week of the game, especially Wednesday and Thursday, which were our install days, where the coaches would give you the game plan, you'd learn about your opponent, you'd learn all of their tendencies and stuff like that. But it was like not until about Friday afternoon that, all right, maybe I can compete, maybe I can break even in this game. And it just, I was blessed to do it for 19 years and really enjoyed it. And every week you got tested.
So students, when you're nervous about a test, think about that right there.
Yeah.
Every week, new person. And it's not like you guys are, you know, same thing. You're learning something new. Another new test comes. It's the same type of story. Another great way
and
football and life intersect.
And the reminder was, all right, I have to go out and practice hard to practice my techniques. I have to learn the plan so I don't screw my buddy playing next to me. And yeah, it works. Studying and working hard pays off.
So you get into the league, you realize that it's a whole new ball game. We always like to ask the question, you know, what was your welcome to the NFL moment? What was that moment when you stepped in, you put the cleats on, put the shoulder pads on, walked out there for practice? Was it a game against, you know, maybe a fellow Hall of Famer? What was that moment where you had to take a step back and go, all right, I'm in the big leagues?
So I played at USC, and this was the USC of what Lincoln Riley's going to bring it back to now. Okay, because we've been down a little bit. But so we played at the Coliseum, and the year prior to the Raiders had moved down from Oakland and were playing as the LA Raiders. And they had guys, Lyle Alzado, Reggie Kinlaw, Matt Millen, Rod Martin, Lester Hayes. I mean, a who's who of NFL kind of bad boy talent. And I'll never forget Howie Long. we threw an interception. I was running downfield. Somebody drilled me in the back, right? And I flew into one of the Raider guys. And Lalo Zato gets up in my face. He goes, "I am going to kill you." And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about, man? One of your guys hit me in the back. And I'm like, this is a grown man right here. He was 34, 35. I'm 22. And he's threatening my life. So I guess that would be it.
You know, we just had Steve Hutchinson at the Hall of Fame to do a Heart of a Hall of Famer. He talked about, because, you know, his rookie year, he went up against John Randall every day in practice. And he said, you know, you got to Sunday and it was like, well, this guy isn't John Randall.
Yes.
And then so like going up against that, was there a guy for you either went up against in practice or played so many times throughout your career that you started to kind of look forward to going up against, like, just because it was a chess match or a great game for you?
I don't know if y'all remember, for the Cincinnati Bengals, they had a nose guard, Tim Crumry. And actually he was more famous or infamous because his leg got broken during a play while he was running, and it kind of, you know, one of them nasty shots. And he was a guy that wouldn't say a word during the game. And I was that way too, unless he started in on me. So it wasn't my fault. But Tim Crumry would bring it every game, not say a word, whether you didn't know by how he was playing, whether they're winning or losing. And those are the type guys that, you know, I really respected. The guy that, there are a lot of guys that you can watch how they're playing and figure out what the score of the game is. And then there's some guys, you don't know if they're up 50, down 50, if it's tied, whatever the case may be. And I really respected guys who played like that.
So that's the beginning of your career. You get to the end of your career, you wait, you get inducted to the Hall of Fame. When you show up to Canton for the full induction weekend, who was that Hall of Famer you had never met before that you were like, I've got to go talk to this guy?
Oh my gosh. I couldn't talk to him. I was too scared. It was Deacon Jones of the Rams. You know, I grew up in Southern California and he was still playing for the Rams. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Deacon freaking Jones. And also Ray Nitschke from the Packers as well. And I'm just thinking, what is wrong with this picture? It's the fact that I'm involved in this thing, because it was like, it truly was like a dream coming true for me. I mean, Joe Namath, Bart Starr, Gale Sayers, Jim Brown. I could go down the list, and that ain't even talking about the good players, the offensive linemen, you know? So it really is a humbling experience every time. You know, it's been kind of sad. I've missed the last 2 years because of COVID. Then I got my knees replaced and not going up for the induction ceremony, because it's, first off, the people of Northeast Ohio, it's amazing. And I guess I got to lump Jake in there, but they're just amazing people, and they make you feel so welcome that it's bigger than just this bust in a museum. And that's the thing that my wife and I have been so impacted by, the relationships that we have with the staff, and obviously meeting the other players. And like Anthony Munoz, for example. Anthony was a senior when I was a freshman at USC. And I'll never forget, I was holding a bag for him one time. I'm just scared to death, you know. And it's like one of those surreal moments. And I'm like, man, I got to hold the bag for Anthony Munoz. You know, it's like, I've made the big time.
You know, you talk about your USC connections. Another USC offensive lineman, Tony Baselli, just got the knock on his door from Anthony Munoz,
right,
letting him know that he is going to be one of the newest members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So not only to see another offensive lineman, but another USC offensive lineman kind of come into that realm with you and Anthony and all the other great linemen that have come out of USC. What's that like for you?
I can brag on USC all day. It really was an amazing time when I was at USC. They had just won the national championship. in 1978. We were number one my freshman year. We had, now get this, on the offensive line alone, in our offensive line meeting room, my freshman year at USC, were 6 future first-round picks on one offensive line. I mean, we were backups, and I think all 6 played that year. But there are teams that don't have one, colleges that don't have one first-round offensive line. We had 6, 4 future Hall of Famers, and a bunch of great players, Ronnie Lott. But anyway,
on and on.
I remember calling my dad and just commenting to him. I go, Dad, college football is really hard. And in hindsight, I'm like, all right, I see why.
All right, got some more questions from our students. So our next student, go ahead and step up, state your name, your grade, and then go ahead and ask your questions.
My name is Ethan Hernandez. I'm in 7th grade. And my question is, what was it like being inducted to the Hall of Fame?
Again, it was really surreal, like, what's wrong with this picture? It was exhausting because, first off, I'm not big on drawing attention to me. So I was really anxious about having to give a speech. But then once I sat down and started writing the speech, I thanked everyone that I wanted to, and, shared about my faith and stuff like that. And I remember seeing people in the audience, my friends and family, that had spent their money to come in and enjoy it with us. And I saw how much they were enjoying it. And I realized, this isn't about me. It's about my friends and family being able to enjoy it. And then after that, I still was anxious and ready to get out of there when it was over, but I did enjoy it a lot more.
That's awesome. It's always so special to watch that moment for the Hall of Famers. We obviously get the chance to kind of see those behind the scenes moments, and before you go out to get your speech, kind of gathering your thoughts, and it's always super cool to watch and be a part of. I want to change gears a little bit here and talk a little bit why we're actually at the school today. Through our great relationship with Extreme Networks, who you heard all about earlier, and their relationship with a company called Generation Esports, there was this awesome, huge Madden tournament that took place this year throughout schools all over the country. And the reason we're here today is because the champions of that tournament went to Toloso Midway High School. So one of their gifts, their honors, their awards that we got was to come here in honor of them. So, you look at a game like Madden. I'm sure you're an avid Madden player. How important is that game, not only, for football fans, but for that 6 or 7-year-old that, just is starting to get into the game? How does a game like that help build the fan base of the NFL and, really grow the game in a whole nother realm than just watching it on TV?
Well, I have to correct something. Once my kids, I have 7 kids. Once I couldn't beat my kids in video games anymore, I'd get too pissed off, and I can't play them because I'd start throwing the controllers and stuff. So it cut off. I think Tecmo Bowl was my last game. But yeah, it's really cool because you can kind of put yourself, and I hate to say it, but in Tom Brady's shoes. Right? You can look through and say, all right, what would I do in this situation? What would I think logistically? And really, I think the coolest thing about video games is, or Madden, is you get a little taste of the time constraint. You can't just stand back there patting the ball. Someone's going to come and earhole you. And that's the beauty. Another beauty of the game is that every quarterback in the NFL, if there was no pass rush, I guarantee would be like 95% completion. But when you start factoring in guys running in like Aaron Donald, trying to rip their head off, that changes everything. It's the old Mike Tyson quote, everyone's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth. And the great quarterbacks are the ones who can get hit and still find a way to get it done. And they're few and far between.
So you don't think you can compete with the kids out here today
No,
playing Madden?
Absolutely not. No.
So congratulations to all those students.
Yes,
Congratulations
very
to the
cool.
team. Yeah, give them a round of applause. While we're on the topic, we'll take another question from one of our students here in the audience. So whenever you're ready, next student, whoever's up, go ahead and step up to the mic and then go ahead and name, grade, and ask your question. That's a great question.
Very competitive. I think God gave me like that video game example that if I can't win, I'm not going to play. But no, I think even more so, football affords you the opportunity to get kicked in your rear and knocked down, and you have a choice to make. You can give in and stay down, or you can get up and say, I'm going to find a way to get it done. But even more so for me is my relationship with God. And what I do now is I help men in their walk and trying to get closer to God through Jesus Christ. And that's my biggest why. So, but football in relationship to that, I knew that God had blessed me. And I played 19 years. I never missed a game due to injury, which is a total God thing, right? And ended up having to get 2 new knees, but that's another story. But I looked at it as an opportunity to go out and say, all right, I'm going to go out, I'm going to glorify God by how I use the gifts he's given me. So that would be my why. I'm sorry? Yes.
You talk about things you're doing now. And one of the big things, as an NFL player is that transition out of the game. 19 seasons for an offensive lineman is a lot of seasons, especially when you look at the NFL today. So when did you know that it was time to walk away? And was it an easy transition? And what was that thing you did right after retiring? Did you jump right back into the game? You coached a few places here and there throughout after you retired. What was that transition like for you?
My oldest son was going to graduate high school. So I'm thinking I was 40 my last season, and I still felt like a kid, but then all of a sudden I started having little things on my body that hurt like not before. And my brother Clay had played till he was 40. So I checked that box. I played as many years as he did.
Competition, right?
And then, I think I just knew it was time. And the young guys started irritating me more and more. But then afterwards, I had no intention of coaching. And my 2 older sons were going into high school. So I'm just going to be a fan for that. Then my next 2 boys, Jake and Mike, Jake plays for the Falcons now. He's the left tackle for the Falcons. They were going into youth football. And the guys, I had known the other dads through Little League and stuff and coaching there. And I just want to watch. I'll advise, if you have questions, I'll help you out. And they go, all right. So I came to their first coaches meeting, and they're talking about running the wishbone and stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're in the dark ages of football. And I had the opportunity to start coaching a 7- and 8-year-old team. And it hooked. I got hooked on that. And it's such a cool dynamic to see when a kid, their switch flips. And to be part of that process is very enjoyable. So I worked up through the youth ranks into high school and then to the NFL. So
what was more challenging, coaching the NFL or coaching 7- and 8-year-olds?
Heck, the young kids, man, herding cats. Yeah.
Was there, we talked about, you mentioned playing in the Super Bowl, which probably stands out, outside of being inducted into the Hall of Fame as your favorite football moment. But
Right.
do you have a favorite coaching moment where maybe there was the switch that flipped for that NFL guy that might have been struggling?
All right. So my other, one of my other sons, Kevin, 4 of my boys played at Texas A&M. And Kevin was an undrafted free agent signed by the Titans, and he made the roster, made the practice squad, then got activated to the roster. The next year, Mike Munchak, former Houston Oiler, was named the head coach, and he hired me as the offensive line coach. So my son Kevin was playing for the offensive line of the Titans. And I did have flashbacks to youth football because I can't watch anyone but my kid, even though I knew, man, I got to watch the other guys too. But we played in 2011. I think it was J.J. Watt's rookie year. And needless to say, he had a pretty good game against Kevin. And as a dad, I'm just like sitting there like, all right, slide the line the other way. We need help. I didn't specifically say Kevin, but I'm like, to my son needs help. And then I'm like, man, this J.J. Watt's a pretty good player. And sure enough. But coaching my son was a really cool thing. Cool. That's, there are so many things like that I'm so thankful for. And in hindsight, I kind of at the time took it for granted. Even that, I got to coach Kevin 2 seasons as the offensive line coach. And even, he gave a couple plays to J.J. Watt, who didn't. But it's like, as the years go by, I'm so thankful for those opportunities. And I wish I had appreciated it more while it was happening. Again, I was too nervous to enjoy it.
You heard in the intro video there, the part of the voiceover by our great friend at the Hall of Fame, Jameer Howard. And he said, our Hall of Famers didn't roll out of the bed great. You just didn't get a gold jacket just because you were an okay football player. You had to struggle through some stuff. Was there a moment throughout your career where you faced adversity and your character was tested? What was that moment, and how did you use what you've learned to persevere through that?
Gosh, I've had throughout my career, whether it was high school or college, where I underperformed. Guys got after me a little bit. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I've let down the family name, the whole 9 yards. And, I say it jokingly, but that is an important thing to the Matthews family, especially our kids, my brother's sons and my sons. They're very proud of the fact that our family has accomplished what it has. And they all understand that without God's grace, there's no way we could do it. And, but I remember in high school specifically one time, the team, we were coming back from we lost in the finals the prior year. We started 0-3, and some reporter called me, and they were pretty benign questions, but I took them very personally. And I remember thinking, all right, we may not win another game, but I am going to go full speed in practice. And my poor teammates took the brunt of it. But there are a lot of moments like that where you have to decide, what's important to you and thankful it worked out.
Awesome. We have any other student questions? Looks like we got one more here. Go ahead and state your name, your grade, and then ask your question.
I'm Nico Zertucci. I'm a sophomore at Tulsa Midway High School. And my question to you is, whenever you finally made it, what was it like when you finally realized I made it?
The biggest thing was, like I said, we were pretty crappy, right? We were 2-14, 3-13, 5-11, 5-11, my first 4 years. And then there was a strike year. Then my 6th year, we finally made the playoffs. But I remember thinking, man, I thought I'd feel a lot more excited about this. It was like, all right, well, I made it to the NFL. There aren't any leagues beyond this. It wasn't quite what it was, what I thought it was going to be. And like so many experiences in life, you know, whether it's getting a new car and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. And then all of a sudden it gets a couple dings and, you know, get some trash in the floor bin, and you can't really place your happiness on like making it to the NFL. That it really strengthened my faith, knowing that there's nothing like my relationship with Christ that's going to bring me the happiness and peace that I want.
Awesome, thank you. We have one more student question. All right, we're gonna take one more last student question here, and then I'll wrap, and then we'll wrap the program here.
All
So
right.
whenever you're ready, state your name, your grade, and go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. I'm Olivia Ramos, I'm a sophomore, and I wanted to ask, why football?
Why?
And what ignited your passion?
Why football?
Yeah.
I wanted to play catcher in the major leagues, but the umpires would complain that all the low strikes they couldn't see because I was too big to see them. No, I really love baseball. Literally outgrew it, and couldn't jump, was slow. It was like the only thing that met my skill set. What was the second?
What ignited your passion for the game?
Oh, man, just competing. I love making up stupid games and having fun at it. And even now, I'm not now, I'm on the disabled list, but playing my old man doubles tennis league. And I love to compete against guys and to talk smack and, you know, just all that. I enjoy that about competition. And for some people, that's very irritating and they don't like it. But there's some people that respond to it, and it just adds to the game and the enjoyment, I think.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for all of our great student questions. My last question for you here today, talked a lot about great things, a lot of things that I think the students here today can take home with them, use in their school lives, their lives outside of school. But if they could only remember one thing, that's all they remembered, what would be that one piece of advice you want them to walk away with today?
Well, the first thing is that, oh my gosh, high school goes fast, okay? I remember and have such great memories about high school, and specifically playing football in high school. And I remember while I was doing that, I'm like, man, I can't wait till high school's over so I can get on to the next big thing. And I wish I had enjoyed that a lot more while I was here. And I would say that holds true with just about everything you experience in life. That, you know, God allows us and affords us opportunities that we may think is like a bad situation for us, but He's going to use it to grow us as people and for us to learn from it and become better people. And I'm so thankful for that. It still doesn't mean I enjoy going through bad situations, but at least now I'm like saying, all right, God, what are you trying to teach me through this situation? But enjoy where you're at. You know, it's going to be over faster than you think. So I guess that would be my.
All right, with that, we're going to wrap up this installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Heart of a Hall of Famer series, connected by Extreme Network. Today featuring our guest, class of 2007 enshrinee, Mr. Bruce Matthews. Let's give him one big round of applause.